There is a moment in modern air warfare that most people never hear about. It lasts 90 seconds. In those 90 seconds, a single aircraft can locate, identify, prioritize, and destroy an entire enemy convoy without the enemy ever knowing it was there. No warning, no escape window, no second chance. The aircraft responsible for that capability is the F-35 Lightning II, and the strike sequence it executes is unlike anything that has ever flown before in the history of combat aviation. This is not a promotional video for Lockheed Martin. This is a breakdown of exactly how that sequence works, what weapons are involved, what the targeting timeline looks like from the cockpit, and why military analysts who study this platform keep arriving at the same uncomfortable conclusion. The F-35 is not just a fighter jet. It is a flying kill network with a pilot inside it. To understand what 90 seconds actually means in this context, you need to understand what a convoy is from a military perspective. A convoy is not just a line of trucks. It is a coordinated logistics or combat formation designed around one core principle, which is that the group is harder to destroy than the individual. Convoys carry ammunition, fuel, command personnel, artillery, and in some cases, mobile air defense systems. They move at coordinated speeds. They maintain radio contact. They have protective elements at the front and rear. Taking one out is not a simple task, or at least it was not before the F-35 changed the equation. The reason a convoy has historically been difficult to destroy from the air comes down to three factors. The first is detection time. Older aircraft needed to get close enough to visually confirm the target, which gave the convoy time to disperse or engage with ground fire. The second is weapon selection. Hitting multiple moving vehicles simultaneously required either multiple aircraft or multiple passes, both of which increased exposure time and gave the enemy time to respond. The third is electronic interference. Modern military convoys, especially those of peer or near-peer adversaries, carry electronic warfare equipment designed to jam radar and disrupt targeting systems. The F-35 was engineered specifically to defeat all three of those problems at the same time. The aircraft carries the AN/APG-81 Active Electronically Scanned Array radar, which is among the most advanced airborne radar systems ever put into operational service. Unlike mechanical radar systems that physically rotate to scan, the APG-81 uses thousands of tiny transmit and receive modules that electronically steer the radar beam in microseconds. This means the radar can be scanning one sector of sky for threats while simultaneously mapping ground targets in another sector without the physical limitation of a spinning antenna. At combat ranges, this radar can detect, track, and classify individual vehicles in a convoy from distances that make visual identification with the naked eye completely impossible. But radar is only one part of the picture. The F-35 also carries the Electro-Optical Targeting System, which the pilots refer to as EOTS. This is a forward-facing sensor package integrated into the belly of the aircraft, fused directly into the cockpit display system. Where the radar gives the pilot an electronic picture of the battlefield, the EOTS gives a high-resolution optical and infrared picture. During a convoy strike mission, the pilot is not looking at two separate screens trying to mentally merge two data sources. The aircraft's fusion system combines the radar image, the infrared image, the optical image, and signals intelligence data from the distributed aperture system into a single, coherent, tactical picture displayed directly in the helmet-mounted display. The pilot sees the convoy before the convoy has any idea an aircraft is in the area. This is the first phase of the 90-second sequence, and it happens entirely outside of weapon release range. The F-35 builds its target picture at standoff distance, identifying vehicle types, counting units, assessing spacing, and flagging any electronic emissions that indicate command vehicles or air defense assets within the convoy. The targeting solution is being built while the aircraft is still invisible to the convoy's radar, because the F-35's low observable design reduces its radar cross-section to an extent that most conventional ground-based radar systems cannot distinguish it from background clutter at extended range. The weapons carried during a convoy interdiction mission can vary depending on the threat environment and mission planning, but the standard loadout for this type of strike typically centers on the GBU-39 small-diameter bomb. The SDB, as it is known in operational use, is a 250-pound precision-guided glide weapon that dramatically changed what a single aircraft could accomplish in a single pass. The reason the SDB changed the math is its size. At 250 pounds, it is small enough that the F-35 can carry 8 of them in its internal weapons bays, 4 per bay, while maintaining full stealth. A conventional 2,000-pound bomb is accurate and lethal, but you can only carry 1 or 2 before the aircraft's payload capacity is saturated. The SDB allows the pilot to carry enough weapons to engage every vehicle in a medium-sized convoy without making a second pass. The SDB is guided by a combination of GPS and inertial navigation, meaning it does not need the launching aircraft to continue illuminating the target after release. Once the weapon is released, it knows where it is going. The glide capability extends its range significantly beyond a traditional bomb drop, with the weapon capable of traveling over 60 miles from its release point, depending on release altitude. This matters for the convoy strike sequence because it means the F-35 pilot can release weapons while still completely outside the effective range of most man-portable air defense systems and many vehicle-mounted short-range air defense platforms. By the time the convoy's radar or visual observers would theoretically be able to detect the aircraft, the weapons are already in the air and the aircraft is repositioning or egressing. The targeting sequence for a multi-vehicle convoy involves the aircraft's mission computer assigning individual aim points to each weapon before release. The pilot does not manually designate each vehicle one at a time. The fusion system identifies the convoy elements, the pilot confirms the engagement, and the mission computer calculates individual release parameters for each weapon in the salvo. The weapons leave the internal bays in rapid succession, each one following its own flight path to its own designated aim point. From the ground, the first indication that an attack has occurred is typically the simultaneous impact of multiple weapons across the length of the convoy. This simultaneous impact across multiple aim points is operationally critical for a reason that is not immediately obvious. A convoy that has time to react to the first impact can disperse. Vehicles that are not yet destroyed can leave the road, scatter into terrain, or begin jamming and countermeasure operations. Simultaneous impact removes that window entirely. The convoy does not experience a warning shot followed by an attack. It experiences the attack as a single event across its entire length. Command vehicles, logistics trucks, armored personnel carriers, and any mobile air defense assets are all struck within a time window measured in seconds rather than minutes. By the time any surviving element could report the attack or attempt to reorganize, the aircraft is already gone. The internal weapons bay design of the F-35 deserves specific attention because it is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the aircraft's strike capability. Critics of the F-35 program have pointed to the internal bay limitation as a constraint on the aircraft's payload capacity, compared to legacy strike aircraft like the F-15E, which can carry enormous external weapons loads on multiple hardpoints. That comparison misses the operational reality of what the internal bay design actually enables. An F-35 with a full external weapons load is no longer a stealth aircraft. The external pylons generate radar returns that are detectable at combat ranges. the aircraft becomes, in radar terms, a very different target. The internal bay configuration preserves the low observable signature that makes the entire strike sequence possible in the first place. You cannot separate the weapon's capacity from the survivability design. The two are the same engineering decision. For convoy strikes in a contested environment, meaning an environment where the enemy has capable air defense coverage, an aircraft that announces its presence on radar before it reaches weapon release range is an aircraft that may not survive the engagement. The F-35's approach trades raw payload numbers for the ability to reach weapon release range undetected, release precision weapons against multiple targets simultaneously, and depart the engagement area before the enemy's air defense network can generate a firing solution. Against a convoy with integrated mobile air defense, that trade-off is not a compromise. It is the only viable approach. The 25mm cannon mounted internally in the F-35A, the conventional takeoff and landing variant used by the United States Air Force, adds a close-range engagement capability that complements the standoff precision weapons. While the cannon is rarely the primary weapon in a convoy strike scenario, its presence allows the pilot to address targets of opportunity or engage threats that emerge unexpectedly at close range without requiring a weapon from the internal bay. The cannon carries 182 rounds of 25mm ammunition and fires at approximately 3,300 rounds per minute, giving the pilot roughly 3 seconds of it. The sensor fusion architecture that makes the convoy strike sequence possible did not appear fully formed when the F-35 entered service. It is the product of decades of lessons learned from combat operations, where American pilots had access to excellent individual sensors, but no reliable way to merge those inputs into a single, coherent picture in real time. During operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, crews flying legacy platforms frequently dealt with situations where the radar picture, the targeting pod picture, and the signals intelligence picture told 3 slightly different stories about the same piece of ground. Resolving those discrepancies took time, and in a fast-moving strike scenario, time is the resource you have the least of. The F-35's fusion system was built specifically to eliminate that resolution delay. The Distributed Aperture System, which the program refers to as DAS, places 6 infrared cameras around the fuselage of the aircraft in a configuration that provides complete spherical coverage with no blind spots. The pilot can look in any direction, including straight down through the floor of the cockpit, and see an infrared image of the world outside the aircraft displayed in the helmet visor. For a convoy strike, this capability means the pilot has continuous visual awareness of the target area without needing to maneuver the aircraft to point a targeting pod at the scene. While the aircraft is still in its approach geometry, the pilot is already watching the convoy move in real time through the DAS feed, confirming vehicle counts and assessing spacing between elements. The targeting pod confirms individual vehicle types. The radar tracks movement vectors, and the mission computer integrates all 3 data streams to produce the targeting solution. What the foreign military community, particularly Russia and China, has found most concerning about this architecture is not any single sensor capability. Individual sensors can be jammed, degraded, or defeated. What makes the F-35 difficult to counter is that defeating one sensor input does not degrade the targeting solution, because the remaining inputs continue to feed valid data. If ground-based jamming degrades the GPS signal feeding the weapon guidance systems, the inertial navigation component of the SDB continues to fly the weapon toward the designated aim point. If infrared jammers are deployed to confuse the EOTS, the radar continues to provide target position data. The system was designed with the assumption that individual components would be contested, and the architecture was built to remain functional under that assumption. The electronic warfare suite carried internally on the F-35, designated the AN/ASQ-239, performs both defensive and offensive functions during the strike sequence. On the defensive side, it is continuously monitoring the electromagnetic environment for radar emissions that could indicate the convoy carries its own air defense capability. If a radar emission consistent with a man-portable surface-to-air missile system or a vehicle-mounted short-range air defense platform is detected, the system characterizes the threat, calculates the engagement envelope, and presents the pilot with maneuvering and countermeasure options. This happens automatically in the background while the pilot is focused on the targeting solution. On the offensive side, the ASQ-239 can generate jamming that degrades the convoy's own electronic systems, including its communication links and any radar-guided weapons that might be carried by escort vehicles. The comparison between the F-35's convoy kill capability and that of legacy platforms is significant and worth examining directly. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, which remains one of the most recognized ground attack aircraft in the American inventory, and which has a devoted following among close air support advocates, carries a 30mm GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon that is genuinely devastating against light and medium armored vehicles. A single A-10 strafing pass against a convoy is an operationally effective attack. But the A-10 operates most effectively in environments where air superiority has already been established and the threat from surface-to-air systems is low. Against a convoy with integrated air defense in a contested environment, the A-10's operational altitude and speed profile makes it vulnerable. It is a subsonic aircraft designed for a threat environment that has evolved significantly since the platform was developed. The F-16 Fighting Falcon, which serves in enormous numbers across NATO and Allied air forces, is a capable multi-role aircraft that can execute convoy strikes effectively. But the F-16 relies on external targeting pods like the Sniper or Lightning system for precision targeting, and those external pods degrade its radar signature. The F-16 also carries fewer precision-guided weapons on a typical strike loadout than the F-35's internal configuration, and it lacks the sensor fusion architecture that allows the F-35 to build its targeting solution at standoff range without active radar emissions that could alert the enemy to the aircraft's presence. The B-52 and B-1B can carry far larger weapon loads and are capable of devastating convoy strikes, but they are large aircraft that require significant mission support and are not designed for the kind of low-altitude, high-threat penetration that might be required in a contested strike scenario. They are most effective when used in coordination with suppression of enemy air defenses operations that have already degraded the threat environment. The F-35 was designed to operate before that suppression has been completed, in the initial phase of a conflict, when enemy air defenses are still intact. The operational lessons from the F-35's combat deployments have been filtering into open-source defense literature slowly because the details of what the aircraft has actually done in operational environments are classified at levels that prevent public discussion of specifics. What has been confirmed through official statements and defense reporting is that Israeli F-35I Adir aircraft, which are the Israeli-modified variant of the platform, have flown operational missions over Iran, Syria, and Iraq. Israeli defense officials have referred to the aircraft as fundamentally changing what is operationally possible in the region. American F-35s have flown combat missions in the Middle East theater. The specific strike sequences executed during those missions have not been publicly detailed, but the performance data that has emerged through defense acquisition reporting confirms that the aircraft is performing its intended functions at or above the levels that were specified during the development program. The question that defense analysts and military planners focus on when they study the F-35's convoy kill capability is not whether the aircraft can execute this mission. That question has been answered. The question is what this capability means for the operational calculus of potential adversaries who are planning ground force movements in any future conflict involving American or Allied air power. A convoy commander who knows that an F-35 may be operating in the area faces a decision set that did not exist a generation ago. Dispersing the convoy reduces its efficiency and coordination. Maintaining the convoy maintains its vulnerability. Deploying additional air defense assets within the convoy adds weight and complexity, but does not guarantee protection, because the F-35's weapon release geometry keeps it outside the engagement envelope of most convoy portable air defense systems. There is no clean answer for the convoy commander, and that is precisely the point of the capability. The future development of this strike sequence involves integration with networked targeting systems that would allow the F-35 to receive targeting data from other platforms, including unmanned aerial systems and space-based sensors, and incorporate that data into its own targeting solution without generating any additional radar emissions of its own. The aircraft becomes a weapons delivery node in a larger kill chain rather than a standalone platform. In that configuration, the 90-second sequence becomes even faster because portions of the target identification and classification work are completed before the aircraft even arrives in the engagement area. The weapons are released against a target picture that has been built and confirmed by multiple independent sensor systems operating in coordination. The convoy never had a viable counter to the F-35 executing this mission alone. Against an integrated kill chain that uses the F-35 as its delivery element, the operational challenge for ground force planners becomes considerably more severe. The procurement debate surrounding the F-35 program has consumed enormous political and media attention for over 2 decades. The program's cost overruns, its development delays, and the unit price of each aircraft have been documented extensively and criticized from multiple directions. That criticism is legitimate in the context of defense acquisition management and budget oversight. It is less relevant when the discussion turns to operational capability in combat. The aircraft that exists today, flying operational missions with the United States Air Force, Marine Corps, and Navy, and with the Air Forces of Israel, the United Kingdom, Norway, Japan, Australia, and other allied nations, is a platform that executes strike sequences against ground targets with a combination of survivability, precision, and simultaneity that no prior tactical aircraft has demonstrated. The cost of developing that capability was high. The operational gap it closes was real. That gap defines the opening phase of any future high-intensity conflict, and this F-35 sits squarely at the center of it, 90 seconds at a time.